Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video, we are talking about how the shorts are hiding synthetics, the over-leveraged loans, why it's over for the shorts, and many more in this video. First, we take a look at this. Plain and simple, these over-the-counter market makers are using equity swaps to dodge and hide the FTD buy-in requirement because they can't deliver real shares, because all the shares are rehypothecated by brokers and lent out multiple times to create liquidity, but no delivery. And this explains why all the time, we see this volume coming in and how little volume it takes for AMC to drop. But it's understanding that Citadel and Virtue are hiding in derivative activity. They're the ones with highest amount of volume on AMC and GME per FINRA. High probability is equity swaps because the open interest on the options would skyrocket. So we've known many things in terms of understanding how, firstly, Virtue, what they've done with AMC, how Citadel obviously internalizes all the AMC trades, therefore not actually giving that buy volume effect on the lit market. But it's understanding what I'm about to show you from a series of things, why they're doing this, how they're doing this, and what this caused. So firstly, you can take a look. Now, we talked about reporting short data, and you can see here, Citadel Securities has its books and records spread across the world in Canada, Singapore, China, the UK, and elsewhere. Now, one thing that we have to understand is that anything that's considered not in America is obviously considered offshore, and those data doesn't have to be reported. And this is why multiple times we've said the short interest data that we are witnessing should be considered the very minimum, because anything that's offshore or anything that is self-reported can be obviously taken out of context because it's not to the full amount. It is not required that you report the full amount. And so when we understand this is why I said the short interest should be way higher. But even when we do already see a large short interest, understand that that is actually the very minimum. But it's also taking a look at this. Virtue Financials owns 6.3 billion in securities sold and not yet purchased, but here's the context. Now, already is understanding that they own 6.3 billion in short positions. Now, we've recently talked about this, and we talked about how obviously these short positions are into them, as we see that they need to take out more loans. They're running low on revenue, they're running low on profit, so obviously it's not working out for them. But here's the thing. We caught Virtue Financial red-handed in 2021 through an API data leak that revealed they were selling non-existent shares amounting to 80% of the entire float for certain stocks, such as AMC and GME. This percentage should have been around 1 to 3% relative to Virtue's size compared to large brokers. This is how we knew all brokers violating bona fide rules. I even contacted Fidelity, Vanguard, and Schwab to see if they engage in similar behavior and asked them to send a response in writing to collect evidence, but I received no response. I documented everything and submitted it to Gary Gensler 3 times in writing and multiple times online. So this is obviously proof that they were creating synthetic shares. Now, it's already been said that the float of AMC exists much more than the float that should be out there, that is obviously given to us in terms of understanding it. But what we can already see is that just with Virtue, they were already selling non-existent shares amounted to 80%. Now, I do believe that the number could actually go even higher than this, because remember, this was in 2021. We're almost going to 2025 now, so you can imagine how that share float will be even bigger than that. It's been such a long time. And so this is what we talked about with how, firstly, Citadel keep their records offshore, how Virtue's already been caught, how they're selling non-existent shares amounting to 80%. And so when we understand and when we see this in terms of hiding and derivative activity, we know what's happening. We know what Citadel is doing. We know what Virtue is doing. And just like we talked about recently, so we've already talked about Virtue, obviously with this. We've talked about how the Citadel has books offshore. We've talked about how Citadel internalizes their trading. These are all things that allows us to understand what is happening with the short sellers. And you can take a look here. Apex has 44 disclosure in their report. They failed to comply with short interest reporting, misreported and deleted large option trades, failed to close FTDs on threshold lists, and all of these that what we talked about. Why, when we take a look at the data that was given to us, whether it's for AMC or whether it's with GME, make sure you take it with a grain of salt. Make sure you understand, and again, this is my opinion, is that is the very, very minimum. Because again, we've seen how they've misreported. We've seen how they don't like to report at all. We've seen how they fail to settle. And remember, if they're quoting that there is very little to settle, how are they still failing to settle these shares? That's because the number, in fact, is actually extremely bigger than what is reported, and that's why they fail to do so, because they need to spend billions, if not tens or hundreds of billions of dollars to actually settle these positions. And we can see here, attention to all the banks that have been loaning shares to those nefarious actors illegally shorting our stock. We see you and retribution is coming. The hedge fund, aka market makers, aren't the only ones that are over leveraged. It's the big names like Citadel and Bank of America too. Now, just like what we talked about in terms of why we're seeing all of these things happening, well, remember, shorts are already over leveraged. We know this from the 80% that was already done in 2021, so now it's obviously even bigger. We know this from how obviously they're hiding in the equity swaps, how they are obviously making up data, how they're internalizing all these trades. We know that they are over leveraged. But not only that, something that we also know is firstly, we have companies like Citi, who we've talked about are shorting AMC. They have synthetic shares of AMC, the Brazilian ADR, something we'll talk about all the time. And what we know is that they also have trillions of dollars in derivative positions that can blow up any day. Along with this, Bank of America. So Bank of America is someone that's been seen taking short positions on AMC in the past before. Now, it hasn't been revealed that they have synthetic shares of AMC or that they're over leveraging their short positions at AMC. What we do know is that Bank of America, like Citi and along with the others, are also trillions in terms of owning trillions of dollars in derivative positions. They are extremely over leveraged. And that's something that, again, like I said, can blow up at any moment. But not only that, they are the prime lenders towards Citadel, in which they have access to 70 or over 70% of Citadel's positions. And this is what we talked about. When we do see these things happening, it's not just the shorts that are affected, it's the banks too. But in this case, banks aren't just affected by the AMC positions, but the derivative positions and even much more than that. And so at any point we see something that happens to liquidate all of, whether it's Citi, whether it's Bank of America too, and in this case, if it's Bank of America, then that's something that's going to affect Citadel as well. That's something that could cause Bank of America to recall the loans, and if Citadel fails to do so, will make Bank of America obviously liquidate their Citadel positions. And so you can see how all of these are obviously correlating to one another, and understand how that's affecting the whole market, how it's affecting AMC, and why we talked about these over leveraged positions will become a massive thing. Another thing, this is 100% over. If the short selling cable loses control of AMC or GME, they are all liquidated. Billions of market maker shares sold, not purchased, come home to roost. And this is what we're talking about. And this is why I always said it's not a fight for which one is better, whether it's AMC or whether it's GME. What we have to understand is that they are mutual short sellers in terms of the fact that short sellers who are shorting AMC are also shorting GME. And so with that in mind, is knowing the fact that when AMC starts squeezing, it will cause GME to squeeze, because AMC squeezing will liquidate the short positions, therefore GME short positions will also get liquidated, and vice versa. If GME were to be the one who was squeezing first, then AMC will also squeeze right after, because the same short sellers are being liquidated from these positions. And you can see why that's what we talked about. When they lose control of one or the other, they will lose control in both, and they will just be liquidated. And is why we see the algorithms being the same for both AMC and GME. Now, something that we have talked about is obviously talking about there's more synthetic shares for AMC than for GME. Again, this isn't a competition, but the reason for that is because AMC is obviously at a lower market price than GME, and so that's why it's easier for them to create more synthetic shares. And again, going back to this, we can see 80% for GME and 80% for AMC and 38% for GME, and that's what we are talking about. Now, just yesterday, and again, this is almost ironic because just yesterday we talked about how on CNBC, we finally saw an article which talked positive about AMC, saying AMC is poised to rebound from the box office, or AMC is poised to benefit from the box office rebound. But now, suddenly, what we're seeing from the article is this: AMC near death cross as debt takes center stage. So once again, they're talking about the debt. And you can even see here, despite recent box office hits, technical indicators suggest bearish momentum for AMC stock ahead. So they're talking about, firstly, is the 50-day moving average is nearing a death cross. It's talking about the technical analysis. Now, like we said, technical analysis is important because it allows us to understand, kind of the market sentiment. But when AMC is heavily manipulated by algorithms, by market makers, technical analysis doesn't have the same effect as it would for other stocks. But it's also the fact that they're talking about debt. And it's why we said that they like to talk everything about debt, but they never focus on the positives, which is understanding how AMC is saving interest payments because of the 25 basis point cut, how AMC is saving interest payment because they're paying off debt that they are doing, the restructure of debt. So this is what we talked about. Anything that will allow AMC to be positive, they will try and make it negative. And you guys, thanks for watching the video. I'll catch you guys next time.